And welcome back to the Livingston Parish News Weekly Show, a podcast brought to you by the Livingston Parish News. My name is McHugh David, publisher and editor of the news. Good to be back after a little holiday week. I'm joined today by the man, the myth, the legend. We always sit down and talk about what's going on around Livingston, and consequently, that's the name of this podcast. I'm going to let him introduce himself this morning. Good morning, sir. How are you?
Good morning. This is David Gray, news writer with the Livingston Parish News.
And plenty to talk about today. So we're going to jump right into it first and foremost with early voting. There are a couple of runoffs in Killian and French Settlement, which you can talk about. And, of course, we have some amendments as well. And I believe there's some other proposals on the ballot. So take it away, sir.
Yeah, the early voting started last Saturday, and it runs through this Saturday. And that, like I said, this is for the December 10th election. So as a reminder, there are two early voting stations in Livingston Parish, one at the Denham Springs Walker Library on Highway 190, and then one at the new Registrar of Voters office on Government Boulevard right off the interstate on Highway 63. So those are two early voting stations. They will be open till this Saturday. And two tax renewals on the ballot this year, or this time around. You got 2 mil tax renewal for the Council on Aging. That is an organization that works with the senior citizens of the Livingston Parish. They have 4 meal sites, and that brings in about $1.2 million a year for them, and they service a few hundred citizens a day across the parish, across those 4 sites in Denham, Livingston, Springfield, and Maurepas. They feed them, they bus them, they bring them their medicine, they hold special gatherings and parties and that sort of thing. So this is their big tax, to be able to provide their services. And then there is also a roads and bridges tax, 5 mil tax, and that brings in about $3.2 million, and that is just for road work in the parish. So you got those two. Those are 2 parish-wide ballots, and you have 3 constitutional amendments. So those make up the parish-wide ballot. But locally, you have 2 runoff seats in Killian and French Settlement, and so like we said, those were the only 2. Brent Ballard and Amanda Jacobson are going head to head for that last seat in Killian, and then Sean Cluot and Roland Gutbier. Forgive me, sir, if you're watching, because I know I probably butchered that last name, but they are going for the final alderman seat in French Settlement. So those are the only 2 local races. But like I said, the rest of the 2 tax renewals and 3 constitutional amendments that'll be on the parish-wide ballot. Probably going to be a lighter response in November, that's for sure.
Yeah, I would expect so. Typically, these secondary runoff elections don't draw a whole lot of a crowd. It was a pretty decent crowd for a midterm election, about 50% total turnout in the parish. Moving on, a local librarian and her continued efforts to try to convince people that she was defamed on social media will continue. We are expecting an appeal of a recent decision by Judge Erica Sledge. Most of you know the story. David, why don't you give us just a real quick background and then tell us what we should expect next?
Yeah, this came about, Amanda Jones said, a local librarian. She spoke at a Livingston Parish Board of Control meeting over the summer, voiced opposition to book censorship from one of the board members who had proposed talking about book content. There was some concerns with some of the books that were in the children's section that some felt were too graphic. Ms. Jones spoke against book censorship, but also, talked about if people do have concerns, there's a process already in place by the Livingston Parish Library that people can challenge books and have them moved. And to date, I believe just 2 have been challenged and moved to the young adult section. But this kind of led to a lot of social media back and forth. 2 individuals, Ryan Timms and Michael Lunsford, criticized Amanda Jones and some of her comments at that meeting, and Ms. Jones has since said that they defamed her reputation with some of the posts that they made on their social media pages that have about 25,000 followers. Well, that went to a hearing in September. Judge Erica Sledge dismissed it, on a couple of grounds. One, that Ms. Jones was a limited purpose public figure, which made it, she had to gave her a higher threshold to prove defamation. She also ruled that Ms. Jones wasn't able to prove the probability of success in her defamation claim, and also that the comments made by the two defendants were based on their opinion. They weren't facts, and some of the threats that Ms. Jones has received didn't come from either defendant. So that was basically the reasons why Judge Sledge decided to strike that lawsuit. And Ms. Jones appealed. She got new counsel, and they had a subsequent hearing last week. And Judge Sledge stuck to her original ruling, and pretty much brought the same reasons for it. And Ms. Jones's counsel said that they will be filing an appeal with the First Circuit Court of Appeals. So whenever that comes about, we will, we'll obviously have something on that. But this story has gained national attention, and that was just the latest step in our latest chapter in that story.
So we will be waiting for them to file that appeal. Of course, with it being done in district court, it will next go to the First Circuit in Baton Rouge. Before we get into two pieces of tragic news, two pieces of news that seems to be very popular in the Livingston Parish area. Got a couple of restaurants announced recently.
We didn't podcast last week. So yeah, that's right.
So coming to the Denham Springs area, one on Range Avenue in Denham and one in Jubin Crossing. Let's start with the one in Jubin Crossing because that one's a little probably going to open here pretty soon, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, that's what it says on their window, coming soon. So we'll see how soon is. But that's Jersey Mike's Subs. Their popular slogan is a sub above, and they're opening in Livingston Parish in the Jubin Square, so on the opposite side of Jubin Crossing, right next to the Lit Pizza, I believe, in that little strip right there. And this will be their first location in Livingston Parish. They have, I believe, 4 or 5 other ones in Louisiana. This is a northeastern sandwich shop. That's where it started. And so yeah, they're coming to Livingston Parish, just showing that growth in Jubin Crossing. Because last week we didn't talk about it, but Andy's Frozen Custards, they're open on the opposite side, on the actual side of Jubin Crossing Shopping Center, right next to the Burger Smith. That site is under construction right now. It's a little bit behind the Jersey Mike's. Jersey Mike's looks, I went there over the weekend, and it looks like it's getting close to opening. I know they're hiring right now. Andy's, like I say, Andy's Frozen Custards, they're a dainty place, sweets and all that. So that building's still under construction, but yeah, so 2 new shops in the Jubin area opening up soon.
Right. I had forgotten about Andy's Frozen Custard. So throw in a third, because we also had the Sliders announcement in what used to be a Hancock Whitney branch right there in front of the Purple Cow.
Yes.
So now that site is that old Hancock Whitney branch was demolished. They sold it. That's going to be a fresh build. That's going to take a while.
Well, actually, with small Sliders, they specialize in having these sort of quick turnarounds on their construction. So it might not be that long. That's kind of because there's one next to my house. I live in Baton Rouge, off of next to Buffalo Wild Wings on Bluebonnet, and they turn those around pretty quick. But yeah, Small Sliders is a hamburger shop. They specialize in those small palm-sized hamburgers, and it's kind of like the hamburger version of Raising Cane's. That's all they got is burgers and fries, and then they also specialize in milkshakes as well. But yeah, that's gonna be coming soon in front of the Aspen Square Shopping Center. That's what it's called, right off the interstate, north of Interstate 12, off the Denham exit. So yeah, a lot of food places coming up soon, and people, for whatever reason, that's our most popular stories, is when these restaurants are opening.
Right, and speaking of Cane's, it'll be right there next to Cane's on Range Avenue. Before we get into some, the good time of year from the sheriff here around Christmas, 2 unfortunate pieces of news. First, we're going to start with a murder-suicide in Denham, and then we're going to talk about a double fatality after a chase in Watson. So let's start with the murder-suicide here in Denham.
Yes, that was earlier in the last week. Carl Altazan, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, 74 years old, is believed to have killed Patricia Blue, 73 years old, in their home on Acadiana Avenue in Denham Springs. This was, like you said, this was a tragic case. And then when you look at some old court records, that this was kind of there was a history of alleged abuse, I guess we could say, between Mr. Carl and Patricia. Patricia on two occasions, one in 2017, one in 2019, filed for restraining orders against Carl, claiming that he abused her. One time he threw her against a wall. Another time he was pulling her by her clothes across the room, just because some very sad situation, I guess you could say. And one time there was another family member in the 2019 situation. Another family was also subject to some of the abuse by Mr. Carl. So, and I think I quoted one of the family members saying, he needs to go to jail before something gets worse. Now, ultimately, both times, the charges were dismissed. So nothing ever came from those beyond the temporary restraining orders. But yeah, that was just, and we make sure we put these in there because there's not, Livingston Parish has, compared to especially the surrounding parishes just outside, there's not, Livingston Parish has a pretty low murder rate compared to East Baton Rouge, Essetia Parish, and Tangipahoa Parish. So so whenever these happens, they tend to stand out a little bit more than maybe in some of the other parishes where it's kind of been getting out of hand lately.
Right. And speaking of which, it was kind of a strange week because we dealt with two of them. This time, dealing with, I believe it was a double fatality in Watson that came after a law enforcement chase. So,
Yeah,
bring us up to speed on that.
yeah. There was a short chase from law enforcement on Highway 16 in Watson, North Watson. And it ended. It led to there was a bunch of people posted about traffic all day. They were dealing with this for a long time that day, and usually state police handles this, but they did not handle it this time. When I reached out to state police, I didn't get a confirmation as to why. Could have been manpower, could have been something, who knows what it was. But ultimately, Ascension Parish was called in to help investigate since this crash did involve. It came about from a pursuit between a Livingston Parish Sheriff's deputy and a person who was being wanted on a bench warrant for various drug crimes, I believe. And yeah, it ultimately took the lives of two people. So yeah, it was just two situations, and I believe in consecutive days that just were tragic in Livingston Parish last week.
Yeah, very rough. So let's get on to some good news. It is Christmas Crusade time from Sheriff Jason Ard and his wife, who we have had many discussions. It sort of not finally came out, but she started getting the recognition as probably the main engine behind
Yeah.
this Coca-Cola 18-wheeler. So if you would, please, because I believe right now it's both donation and registration time, correct?
Yes.
So
right.
tell us a little bit about that.
So, I mean, first of all, you can, go to the sheriff's website, Facebook page if you want to donate to the Christmas Crusade. It has all the information there. But over the next few weeks, over the next 3 weekends, I believe, or 2 weekends, excuse me, next 2 weekends, they will be out from Thursday through Sunday each week at the 3 Denham Springs Super Centers in Livingston Parish. So that's one in Denham, one in Watson, and one in Walker. Then also at Bass Pro Shops in Denham Springs. That's where the deputies will be out there all day. They'll be collecting toys, money donations, all that stuff. And all this goes to help impoverished children in Livingston Parish. This has been a program that started in the 1980s by the former Sheriff Willie Graves, and it was passed on to Sheriff Jason Ard. Like you said, it's kind of been spearheaded by his wife Erica. We did a feature piece on her 2-ish years ago, 2 or 3 years ago. I can't remember when, because she's always been kind of hesitant to speak to the media. Some people just aren't comfortable doing it, but she finally was able to do it. Sheriff R wanted her to finally get the recognition because she's the main engine behind this thing, and I believe it's. What's the stats? 9,300 children from 4,200 families since Sheriff Ard became sheriff in 2012. That's how many people they have helped through this program, and people can People can also register for this at the Woodside or next to the Woodside landfill in Walker. That's where people can register over the next couple weeks, and the toy delivery date is, I believe, December 16th. Yeah, that'll be a Friday, December 16th. So that is, but yeah, that's always a popular thing. And that delivery day is always, it's always a fun day because you'll see you never see as many deputies in one spot as you do on that day because they all come out to deliver toys to all corners of the parish.
So yeah, and it's a big deal to both the sheriff and his wife. The sheriff mentions it. We might be having a podcast about something completely different, but he's always going to bring it up. So much like some of the other programs, especially through the assessor's office, just these very community-based programs that have been around for a long time at this point, multiple decades, I guess you can say. So thank you, sir. Before we check out, I do want to respond to some of the people who have reached out to us. We, of course, appreciate your patronage. I will be a little more diligent in announcing when we're going to take a week off to a holiday or something of that nature. Last week, of course, we did not do it because we typically record these on Wednesday, and everybody needed off to be with their family for Thanksgiving. And so in that vein, we will not have a recording on the 28th of December. We will have that week off. We will be back here for January 4th. So just to let everybody know. If you'll introduce yourself, sir.
Hey, this is David Gray, news writer with the Livingston Parish News.
And my name is McHugh David, publisher and editor of the news. Appreciate you guys out there for joining us for the Livingston Parish News Weekly Show. Please remember the news is on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, and YouTube. We are once a week in print on Thursdays. That's $7 a month to get that in your mailbox. We're also online, www.livingstonparishnews.com. One last time, we appreciate you joining us, and we'll see you next time.